House of Pain, and John decided to bring Frenchie by the school one evening to watch the free matches. After a worker handshake and a minute or so of conversation, I knew Frenchie wasn't bullshitting me about being an old school worker from the 60s and 70s era. We talked, and I could tell by the look on his face just how much he missed professional wrestling. Here was a man who had traveled the country with some of the biggest names in the business, and it was the first time in 20 years that he was up close and personal with an actual wrestling ring and workers. It was like watching a kid in a candy store as he checked out all the memorabilia and watched the boys work their magic and their matches. As I got to know Frenchie, I learned how he began his pro wrestling training in Massachusetts after a wrestler by the name of Don Eagle talked him into giving the business a shot in 1959. Frenchie began traveling with Cowboy Bill Watts, Gypsy Joe, The Shadow, and The Sheik, to name a few. After wrestling and going over in a match against Bobo Brazil, Frenchie was stabbed in the hand with an ice pick by a very irate fan. The man knew the business, and it was a real honor to have such a part of pro wrestling passed right here in our training center in Hagerstown. Frenchie always had a very high praise for our program, our workers, and me. We welcomed him as a part of the NWL House of Pain family, and from there on, the Flying Frenchman had a piece of his past restored back to life. Frenchie was also a real practical joker. He couldn't go a day, or even a conversation for that matter, without telling a joke or playing a rib. He loved life, and he loved to have a good time. This was important to Frenchie because he suffered from so much physical pain, which, as we all know, can bring about a lot of blues and depression. Frenchie was a tree topper in Newton, Massachusetts, back in the early 70s, and was injured when his partner let go of a 14-foot, 200-pound log that broke Frenchie's neck and back. It would have put any normal man in a wheelchair for the rest of their life, but not Frenchie. That's how tough this former U.S. Army paratrooper with the infamous 82nd Airborne was in and out of the ring. I've always said I met a lot of tough men in my life, through football, martial arts, a rough street life, but the toughest men have been pro wrestlers by far. In 2010, I had the tremendous honor of being inducted into the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. On the drive back from East Providence, Rhode Island, I got the idea to speak to promoter Joe Bruin about possibly considering Frenchie as a future Hall of Fame member. Joe, being the great guy he is, said, "John, send me Gene's information and a photo. He'll be added next year." When I heard this, I will admit I honestly teared up and cried, knowing how happy and excited Frenchie would be. At this time, I still hadn't told Frenchie when I got a call from him telling me how he read a very nice article in the paper about my induction into the Hall of Fame. I said, "You know what, Frenchie? Next year, you're being inducted." His reply was, "You're kidding me, John. No way. I don't deserve that." Here is a man who helped forge the way for future generations of workers in the New England region. He paid his dues and entertained the fans as a true professional. I told him, "Frenchie, yes, you are getting inducted, and you most certainly deserve it. Congratulations."
Frenchie!
Wednesday, November 4th, 2010, my good friend Frenchie stopped by my house next to the training center. We spoke about going out and playing golf and having him come around and speak to my newer trainees about the old school days. Frenchie loved telling the boys how it used to be back in the day, and I loved having a true old-timer educate our workers. Frenchie was just a fun guy to have around and a wonderful addition to the credibility of our product. On Saturday, November 6th, my good friend Frenchie passed away. I cried again, but this time because I lost a very dear friend and brother. I miss him a lot. I have a terrific photo of the two of us hanging in the school wall. Jean, the Flying Frenchman Machain, is with us every day and will always be NWL, House of Pain. And now, with many thanks to Joe Bruin, the Flying Frenchman's name will forever be etched into professional wrestling history. Jean Flying Frenchman Machain, 2011 New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame member. We're all very proud of you, Frenchie, and knowing you, Frenchie, you're busting every wrestler's balls who God led through those pearly gates. I told you I had to read every word. Written by John Rambo, New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, class of 2010.